All right, hello, minions, and welcome to Designer Discussion. I am your host, Noir, go by he, they, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have one of the designers for Everyday Heroes, Goober. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Say hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Goober. They them. Yeah, I'm one of the two main designers along with Sig on Everyday Heroes. Um, I've been playing RPGs forever, and I've been making stuff for RPGs pretty much since the beginning of when I started.
Heck yeah.
Which is not the beginning of RPGs. I'm not that old, but since third edition D&D or so.
It's almost depressing to realize when 3.5 came out. That's also when I started. but
Yeah.
but I know that the community has had a number of questions that they have been leveraging at all of our socials. So I am happy to finally have an expert in the field here to answer the burning questions that they have for us. But before we get into their questions, I kind of want to get into your history so we can find out a little bit more about you.
hmm
I mean, you're designing this thing, so it all starts with you. And so I kind of want to know, how did you get your start in game design?
So like I said, I've been making game stuff forever, since well before I knew how any rules worked. I needed to make stuff. It's some kind of drive that I got to do. And I was always picking up games that had level editors for like video games and stuff. And like I said, as soon as I got my hands on D&D, I was making my own custom content for it. Um, and in the early days, maybe it wasn't that great, but eventually I started to actually figure out how to do it. And eventually I went to college for game development, video game development, but um, a tangential field. So I went to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. They had just started their interactive media and game development program. Um, so I have a degree in this theoretically. So if anybody's worried about credentials, which I don't think they are, but yeah, and then with fifth edition, they released the Dungeon Masters Guild,
Yeah.
where anyone can put up their own content, um, and sell it. Wizards gets a little bit, um, and some of my stuff has gotten pretty popular there. I did a companion system for handling. Having a bunch of like NPCs in the party that you don't want to waste time, having either the players control something that's not a main character,
Yeah.
or just the DM takes half the turns.
Or adding
um,
to initiative count. God.
yeah, and then fights are going to take three times as long, and all that. So that was sort of a solution there. I love a good system hack, something that I can sort of put on top of a game. Um, I've got a planar bestiary as well, so I make a ton of NPC and monster stats. That's kind of my area.
Must have been a nightmare for your players.
Yeah. Well, it's a nightmare, but a fun nightmare.
Sure.
Um, that's sort of the point of this is you get challenged, and it's fun. Um, but yeah, so one of the things I made was a system for doing chases a little better.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up getting found for this, because Dave really wanted to do make sure chases were really good, because this is modern action movies. chases are so important, like in a D&D game, like, yeah, maybe every now and then you got to run away from a big monster, or maybe you're a thief that stole something, do a beginning of Aladdin kind of scene. But for the most part, it's not quite as important.
Yeah, you have to sing one
um
step ahead while you do it, though. That's the rules.
yeah.
No, I mean,
um
absolutely. Like, when you first mentioned this to me, it made me kind of go through all of my favorite action movies, and like, there's almost a chase in every single one of them. Like, especially
mhm.
any Tom Cruise movie you watch. So yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Hang on, I need to fix my light. Ah,
No,
fell over.
uh, so I
There we
mean,
go.
I know that the chase mechanic is something that it is one of our premier features, one of our premier functions in Everyday Hero. We just sent a bunch of play tests specifically
Hmm.
on chasing, so it's something that we're looking to hammer down uh,
Yeah.
and make an essential part of play for people who want to choose to use that feature. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, can you give us some inside
So
baseball?
yeah, so the basic idea of the chase system is to make it a little bit more narrative. Because doing a chase kind of like combat, where it's very detailed, um, isn't very exciting.
Yeah.
You end up with sort of maybe a more realistic kind of chase, but that's not very fun. Like, oh, I can run faster, so I win. Like, that's just it.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sure, that makes sense in real life. Of course, if you can run faster, you're gonna catch the other guy. Um, but in a movie, it's like this constant, like, crazy string of knocking boxes over behind you and crashing into fruit carts, and all kinds of big
There's always a
stuff.
fruit cart.
Yeah, there's always got to be a fruit cart, or a vegetable cart, or some equivalent.
Or if this is Avatar,
um,
cabbages.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, the idea is to make things a little bit more abstracted than combat. It's still kind of, you take turns, but you're not tracking movement on a map. You're just kind of describing a general scene and assume everybody's moving all the time. And one thing I had done with my DM's guild chase system, was it ended up kind of being a bit of a tug of war, which, again, realistic. If you're winning the chase, it's harder for your opponent to catch up.
Right.
Like, that's just how it works. Um, but to make things more exciting, instead, in this system, you're basically scoring points.
Oh.
Um, which it sort of functions a little bit like how hit points work in a fight.
Okay.
You're both you're both getting closer and closer to being defeated until somebody actually is.
Okay.
Um, so as you're running away, you're going to be making like skill checks and stuff to try and get points for your side. If you screw up real bad, you might get points for their side. Your opponents are doing the same. Um, and then one concept that has been kind of refined from D&D is complications, which is sort of the idea of, every round you're running into stuff, and that's where you get, like, the fruit carts. Um, so toppling over boxes behind you, that's going to be an action that you do. You're going to make, like, an opposed skill check and maybe score some points for your side. But, like, oh no, there's a thing in front of you, is going to be, you got to make, like, a save or a skill check depending on the kind of thing. And those can also result in points, as well as give you sort of an opportunity to use different skills. So like, you run into a fruit cart, you pass your save and leap over it, but now you could, like, kick a box of fruit behind you and knock over your opponents, or pick up some fruit and throw it at them, or point at your opponent and blame them, so the person who owns the cart is hassling them instead of you. So it kind of informs what you can do, and you can always just come up with your own creative stuff. The GM should be pretty open to like, oh yeah, that's totally cool, make that skill check. But it gives you sort of a narrative structure rather than a tactical or realistic kind of structure to work with.
So my next question is, does this chase function also work with automobiles? Because I know that we have car chases as well.
It does, yes. So car chases are a little bit different in that only some people are driving. So often what you'll see in a car chase is that there's a fight happening also,
Okay.
if not everyone is in a vehicle. So, if everybody's driving their Mini, and getting chased by the cops or whatever, then it's pretty much going to function the same sort of way. But if everybody's packed in one car and you've got the one player driving, they're mostly going to be the ones who are making checks against complications and trying to lose opponents with the chase mechanics. But the cool thing about chases is they have the same initiative order as combat, so you can mix them. So you can have a chase happening while everybody is standing up on top of vehicles and jumping between cars and fighting.
Yes.
And like I always think of the scene from The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah.
Which I would sort of argue is the only good scene in that movie.
Hey now.
So good.
Don't forget the point of Michelle.
Other people have their own opinions. But that scene is worth watching the movie for.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as I saw that we had a vehicle chase mechanic, my mind immediately went to Baby Driver. Like, I get to live my Baby Driver dream. Yes.
Yeah. And the chase system also works for just like doing races. So if you're not necessarily chasing after or being chased by someone, but you're trying to get somewhere first, or literally doing a drag race, the mechanics work for that as well.
Yes,
yeah.
finally,
so we can do all kinds of cool action scenes.
Yeah, we can have our Fast and Furious games. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, so now I kind of want to ask you one of the more frequent questions that we receive on the socials, which is why 5th edition? There are some people that are a little contentious about the fact that we're publishing this for 5th edition amongst all the other systems that are out. So I'd kind of like to get your perspective on that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons. I mean, one of them is just that 5th edition is very popular, which means that a lot of people know it, which means there's sort of a shorthand in learning this game.
Yeah.
So if you've played 5th edition D&D, there's a couple of things you're going to have to learn are different, but for the most part, how everything goes. You know how to roll an attack and a skill check and make a saving throw. You know how hit points work, all that. But I do think that 5th edition is an incredible fit. I think it's a great system. It balances simplicity and depth pretty well. There are other systems that have more depth to them, and there are other systems that have more simplicity.
Right.
But I think 5th edition really has kind of an optimal combination, where it has a good amount of both, where you can just pick your starting stuff, make your starting character. You don't really know maybe what all of that means, but it's easy to do, and just hop right in and learn the system real fast. But if you wanna do something a little more complex, do some weird multi-classing and feats and optional stuff, like that's there too if you wanna customize a little bit more. Um, and it also doesn't have any of what I would call in other systems like unmeaningful choices. One game design thing that was pretty well drilled into me in school is the idea of meaningful choices. It's not enough to just let somebody make a choice. It's you reach a T intersection. Do you want to go left or right? Like that's not a real choice. Like you do have to choose,
Yeah.
but unless there's some kind of information, it's not a real choice. And the same goes for like character creation. Do you want to put 3 skill points in this one skill and 1 skill point in this other skill? And well, like, I mean, really, you're just gonna pick the skills you have and keep putting skill points in them in like third edition D&D and stuff. Like it's rarely an actual choice. And also, speaking of third edition, you can also just make wrong choices,
Yeah.
which in a competitive game is a meaningful choice because you gotta figure out what the right and wrong choices are. But role playing games are not competitive, so it really sucks to be like, I want to be a fighter. Wrong. Like that's no. I want like you want to be a fighter. Like you should be allowed to do that. Absolutely. That should
Absolutely.
be as good a choice as anything.
Now, one of the things that we tell our fans on the socials is that if this is a system primarily based in fifth edition. However, this is our take on it. We have done some reworking, we have done some tweaking, to make this system our own and to honor the original spirit of D20 Modern. So, can you talk about any of the kind of tweaks and changes that players can expect from standard fifth edition to Everyday Heroes?
Yeah. So a lot of the changes we've made are just because it's modern. So there are no wizards. There's tons of guns. Like wearing plate mail is not very good defense. So like there's stuff that is kind of necessary to change because just because of the system. So like one thing we have is armor works a bit different. Where kind of like D20 Modern, you have a defense bonus from your class. And that's going to determine your defense score, which is just armor class renamed. Um, but then armor can save you from like a lethal shot.
Okay.
If you were going to drop to 0 and your armor is the kind of armor that can stop whatever attack you're taking, like if you have a leather jacket, it's probably not going to stop a rifle, but a ballistic vest certainly would.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so you get a special save to avoid that damage.
Okay.
So wearing like some body armor is it's not going to come up all the time because like in action movies and modern stories and stuff, people aren't constantly running around in full tactical gear. Sometimes they are, but if the situation makes sense for you to not really be wearing armor, it's not like whoops, my fighter went from a 20 AC to an 8, and now I'm useless. It's just sort of you don't have that one little extra save you if things go bad.
So we
Um,
could pull that movie trope where somebody gets shot and it's like, oh my god, they're dead, and then like a minute later they're like, the vest caught it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, you could just sort of pretend that it got you. Um, yeah, so that's sort of the kind of changes we're making. The skill list is a little different. There's computer skills and science skills and stuff. Um, and then the sort of the major thing is classes.
Right.
And I mean also races. There's everybody's a human by default. If if you end up doing some kind of modern fantasy or something where you can be an elf, that's something for the future.
Right.
For the core book, everybody's a human. So we've got like professions instead of pick an elf, dwarf, human. And then of course all the classes are different.
Okay.
You can't be a cleric, at least not as a class. I mean, that is a real life thing you can be, but it doesn't give you
I
holy laser beams
Oh, see, but
that I'm aware of.
now we need to find a way to add holy laser beams to this game.
Oh, I'll find a way.
So,
Not in the core, but later. Uh,
so can you tell us a little bit about the classes?
yeah, so like D20 Modern, the classes are separated into like kind of 6 categories. They're strong, agile, tough, smart, wise, and charming. They're based on the ability scores. But those are what we're calling base classes, and then within that you pick your kind of real class, which is going to be like sharpshooter or brute, or mastermind, manipulator,
Mastermind by far is
bodyguard.
my
It's
favorite.
more, yeah, more specifically, like this is really what you do.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so the design of those classes is it's all modern stuff, so it's got to be stuff that people can actually do. And we also have feats as a core mechanic rather
Mhm.
than like a theoretically optional one. And characters get a few more of those, so that adds a little bit more customization. Um, and because we have some retrospective on fifth edition, we can make tweaks that aren't just like how to make it modern, but also like, oh, this would be a little better.
Uh, so,
Um,
so to kind of clear that up, is there still ASI?
yeah, yeah, ability score increase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's now just a feat.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, because I mean, it basically is in fifth edition. It just isn't called that. So that's simplified a little bit. And we also have minor and major feats, which a major feat is kind of what fifth edition has as feats. And then minor feats are the sort of things that in 5e you would get that plus an ability score increase.
Oh, like the actor feat, where it's just you
Yeah,
can impersonate somebody, also pump up your charisma.
yeah. So by kind of splitting it in half, you can decide, oh, I want 2 of these, or I want a +1 in strength and also this charisma based ability, and you can customize a little better.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so I think we got to talk about the smart hero. I think
Yes.
that's a big thing that has ended up being really cool. So in designing smart heroes, I wanted to make sure they had big moves they could do. Sort of like how spellcasters work. Because with like wise and charming heroes, there's a lot of like skills and defensive moves and ways to add damage, and like there's a lot of ways to make that without magic.
Yeah.
But for a smart hero, the question is, how do you apply intelligence to a situation in a way that is cool and powerful, and not just, oh, I have plus a million to investigate, so I'll just sit here and do nothing until I need to make that skill check. Um, and so what I came up with was mechanically very similar to spells, wherein you get genius points that you can spend to enact plans. And those are a daily resource. So it's you're the character that brings out like a big thing every now and then, versus some other characters who might be a little more consistent but not quite as powerful all at once. Um, but what ended up happening with the theming of that is really cool, where the way plans work is they are retroactive. So you say, as a genius, as a smart hero, I planned for this, and out of game you didn't. You didn't tell the GM I'm going to plan this. You just say my character is so smart and smarter than us sitting here that they get to retroactively say they did something. So you could enact the plan, know the layout. So you can just know stuff about a building. Maybe you say, oh, I looked up the blueprints of that building last night, knowing we would be here. Or like I've seen so many buildings like this, and like I know how people design things so well that I can just perfectly predict that the number of guards they have stationed is going to be this many.
It's so
The GM
cool.
will just tell you that.
It's so cool. I played. I was in a play test where essentially I was playing a smart hero, and to be able to like initiate a flashback to
Yeah.
explain it. Oh, it was just so cool. It felt so much like a heist movie. It-
So like I think one plan you did there was like cut the power. So you get to just be like, I put something on the generator downstairs that is gonna, cut the power to this building or this room or whatever. Or I hacked into their system, or any number of things. You can kind of describe it however you want.
Weaponized
The
retcon.
mechanical effect is, the lights turn off and their computer is off and all that. Um, and then the actual classes under Smart Hero, a lot of them do deal with like technology and stuff,
Hmm.
because that's a very smart hero kind of thing. The scientist can say, oh, I whipped up this chemical earlier. I prepared this explosive device. An engineer can be like, oh, I brought this gun mod that I'm going to put on this weapon now. I programmed my drone to do this, so let's activate the drone. Um,
I mean,
but
this
of
system.
course,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say this
yeah,
system really lets you live out the dream of the man in the van too. It's amazing.
yeah, absolutely. But my favorite of the smart heroes, which is just the smartest of smart, is the mastermind. And they don't do anything with like technology or chemicals or computers necessarily. They,
Right.
they can do a little bit about that, but all their plans are raw intelligence. They're all about that like retroactive thing. A lot of their plans start with like, I did a thing. So like one of them is, I had it poisoned. So you can apply that to like a weapon. Your ally attacks with a knife or something. You can be like, oh, I put poison on that earlier. But you can also do it to food. So you're having a tense negotiation with the crime boss, over dinner. They're threatening you, and they take a bite of their food, and you're like, I had that poisoned. And suddenly they have to roll against poison. And how did you do that? Who knows? You can make it up. Maybe earlier in the day you paid off a guy and slipped them some poison, and we can montage that whole sequence. Or maybe you activated your little wrist mounted dart gun that injects poison. Like whatever you want to say. Um,
I mean, that's such just a fun narrative beat because you can have the player explain it in the moment, or you can have their fellow players ask after it's all said and done, like, "When did you do that?" And it's just,
yeah, like how
oh,
did you poison him? And you can be like, well, and anyone can help out.
yeah.
Like the GM can be like, oh, I think maybe you did it this way, and the player can be like, oh, yeah, like that. But also I did this little extra thing, and you get to really collaborate on the narrative of the situation.
So
And then mechanically, you basically get to cast spells.
yeah.
You basically get to do a big, crazy, cool thing. So you get to deploy your secret jetpack and give someone flight, or use your hidden taser to do some damage and stun someone, or hack into a computer system and take control of it, as you run the program that you wrote over the last month. Um, so yeah, like that's ended up being one of just like the most fun
Yeah.
and like narratively cool things in the system.
I have to ask you, when you were designing the mastermind, like what movie characters, what kind of what inspired that? Because like I've got a couple of movie characters that when I read the mastermind, I'm immediately thinking of like, this is like a Kaiser Sose type character for sure.
Yeah, I mean, initial design, I don't think it was more of an archetype. Like, I don't think there were specific characters. I definitely got some inspiration from like kind of your comic book esque supervillains,
Yeah.
but kind of like how can we make that like a player thing? How can we have the heroes do that? So like a lot of like spy movies and stuff. Um, and then after we got some art for the class, um, I was really inspired by I can't remember the name of the character, but in The Runaways, which is a comic
Oh, I know
series,
exactly. Yeah.
they did
Oh,
they did a
Prodigy.
Hulu thing. Hmm?
Prodigy.
Yeah, so like that character is just he's the one on the team that doesn't have superpowers.
Yeah.
But he's also like kind of the most terrifying one, because he's just like so smart and so good at planning stuff, and so good at like predicting what people do. And like that's such a cool character type.
Yeah.
So the initial idea was like, how do we do smart hero without them being like a tech person? What's a smart hero that isn't a scientist or a hacker or an engineer?
Okay.
And then kind of from there was tons of inspiration.
So like I one of the things about this system that the more I play it, the more I love is that there really has been a lot of thought to making sure that each part of the character sheet is useful and valuable. One of my complaints with standard fifth edition is that being proficient in intelligence saves is like, I mean, why? Like, it's
Mhm.
wisdom, constitution, and dex are like the most well used saves. So I mean, we've built classes for each stat block, and I've recently had a chance to start playing some wise characters, and they play so well, but so different from the intelligence characters. Do you have any
Mhm.
insight on some of the wisdom characters?
Yeah, so the wisdom characters have a thing called focus, which if you know fifth edition will be reminiscent of key points for monks. They're a resource that are kind of mana point esque. It's the points you can spend. They recharge on short rests, so they're a little bit more consistent than your genius points. As opposed to like real big stuff. It's smaller things you do kind of all the time. Um, but yeah, so they by default, wise heroes can re-roll some wisdom checks with it. But then each of the wise classes has their own way of using it. So, for instance, the master actually does get key. They get martial arts moves that they can spend their focus on. But then like there's the sleuth, which
Yeah.
can use it to like read other people super well, or they can use it for investigation checks, in addition to wisdom based stuff. So they can. they can get advantage on attacks against people because they can like predict their movement so well. Um, and not spending focus points, but they get stuff like they can't be surprised, advantage on initiative. They're just like super aware because wisdom kind of has that inner sense, common sense, willpower kind of thing, like a mystic does,
Yeah.
or master. But it's also perception based. So the sleuth is heavily on the like awareness kind of side of things. Or you can be a hunter and you get a pet. Um, and you can command your pet to do extra stuff, and hunters mark people with your focus. Your focus is on uh, you know hunting, whether that's in the wilderness or you're some kind of like bounty hunter.
I mean, I truly love the way that the different classes play. They allow for such different play styles, and they're all useful in combat in really peculiar, particular ways. Which I'm
Yeah,
so excited for people to get their hands on this. It's I'm really interested in seeing how this is all going to mesh together. Um, Another question that I had, and this is a question that has started popping up in the community, is multiclassing.
yeah.
I'd love to hear more about how we handle that in this system.
hmm Yeah, so multi-classing is done in feats in Everyday Heroes, which has been done in some other systems.
Hmm.
I didn't like how they did it in fourth edition D&D, but the basic idea of taking feats to get stuff from other classes ends up working really well here. Um, you're not inheriting like enormous crazy like magical abilities and stuff. We're not worried about like how do you as like a fighter just take a feat and now you feel like you're also a wizard. um like that's a whole thing.
Right.
But because the classes are fairly simple. They tend to do a few things that are very unique to them, and then there's a lot of like customization you can do. Um, and and then this also allows us to kind of front load classes a little bit more. Um, because one thing I always hate in a role playing game is I come up with a character concept, but it doesn't work at level one.
Yeah.
Like I want to be a shape shifting druid. Like you get shape shifting at level 2, which isn't that high. Like
Right.
you're gonna get it real quick, but it still sucks that like I've trained in the mystical arts of druid shape shifting for 3 decades. I can't do it yet, but give me one quest and then I can do it. That's always a little obnoxious. So the way classes were built here is you have your base class and your real class like immediately. Both of those come in at level 1. And the stuff you get at level 1 is the core mechanic. And it's going to be expanded as you level up. You're going to get stuff at 2 and 3 that are pretty big deals. But level 1, you want to be a sharpshooter, you're a sharpshooter. You want to be a heavy, which is like a strength based ranged weapons character. Like right off the bat, you can carry around a huge machine gun. You don't have to wait until level 4 to get the thing where you can carry a stationary weapon, when before you couldn't. You get to be that character immediately. But what that means is if you could just take levels in other classes, it would probably be the best thing to just like kind of take one and everything, because you get so much at level 1.
Yeah.
Um, so instead, you get to pick up sort of more balanced chunks of other classes through feats, and you also get more feats. So characters in this get a feat, or rather two minor or one major feat at level 2. which is well before the level 4 feat in D&D. And then you get more of them, sort of over time.
Okay.
So you can start multiclassing at level 2 like you could in any other thing. But you're not picking up the front loaded big cool crazy stuff that would make your character unbalanced, nor are you missing out on the level 2 of your actual class.
Yeah.
Which is a great benefit. You get to level 10, which is the cap in everyday heroes, because after that you're kind of superheroes. And you're not missing out on your cool 9th and 10th level powers from your class. The only thing you're kind of giving up to multi-class is other feats and like maybe some ability score increases, but you can get a little bit of each anyways.
I just love the mental image of being this brute with a heavy machine gun that's also like a genius.
Yeah. I think Sig said, the other designer said that he had made a character that was a melee brute with a jetpack from the engineer, and that rules.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So like, yeah, there's tons of crazy stuff you can do with it. It's still pretty much as customizable as any multi-classing, but a little bit more reined in terms of balance. You don't have to worry about like oftentimes a multi-class character in D&D will be really powerful for a couple levels, but then everybody gets their big cool thing at a high level and you don't.
Yeah.
And now suddenly you're way behind until a few more levels later when you're more powerful. And like that's always a little awkward, like it's a little bit nicer to sort of just always be consistent. You're not missing out on extra attack at 5th level. You just maybe didn't get +2 to your strength and instead got some genius powers.
I love that, but we've mentioned the word balance a few times, and I know that one of the questions that we get a lot on the socials is we're working with modern day weaponry here. So how do we do that and keep the game balanced?
Yeah, so I mean the game is balanced around modern weapons. So like sort of the standard how much damage characters can do is kind of based around that. In order to use military weapons effectively, you got to be proficient in them. So much like in D&D, there's kind of higher weapon proficiencies.
Right.
There's just kind of one more tier of them for this, which is your military machine guns and assault rifles and things. But also you can run a game that is kind of all like military weapons,
Right.
everybody's soldiers and stuff. Or you can do a game where like you're going around in a city and you probably can't bring giant weapons around. And so the idea basically is that the balance between those things is not huge. Like there isn't a huge difference between weapons, but it is like noticeable enough.
Right.
So that like, oh, now I get to bring my giant machine gun to the fight. Like it feels good. You get to have a little bit of a bonus. But if you don't have it, like that's still going to be okay.
Okay.
And and like other balancing things, some characters are more focused on combat than others. So like the mastermind, for instance, and the charming hero manipulator are definitely much more about the non-combat. But everyone can participate in a fight.
Right.
The mastermind gets a thing where they can tell someone how they did an attack wrong, and let that person re-roll it. even though they have no idea how to fight. Manipulators get to demoralize people and kind of act as like a debuffer in combat rather than attacking.
Uh,
Everybody gets combat options. That's something that fifth edition does that we wanted to kind of keep. Make sure everyone can do something in a fight, because there's probably going to be fights.
yeah.
There don't have to be. Like you can play a game without combat, but action movies and such are sort of the inspiration. So like probably you're going to get into some fighting.
So shenanigans, yeah. I have to tell you that the "you're doing it wrong" ability from the mastermind is my favorite. It's just like, oh my god, you rolled a one, roll it again, and then you like explaining how they messed up. Oh my god, so good.
Yeah, it's real fun. You get to on your turn, you're probably not going to be making very powerful attacks,
Right.
but you can like have your big crazy powerful brute companion who just whiffed an attack be like, no, do it better, and then they land it and
do it with 30% less cluck this time.
Yeah.
I truly do love the mastermind. So another question that I see that we get very often is people are interested in perhaps at some point bringing magic into this system. We hear the words urban arcana all the time in the socials, and so I just kind of wanted to see if there's any insight on that. Is that something that you're curious about as well? Is that something that
yeah, absolutely. Like I have a list of classes that I would do. We don't have anything official. But I'm thinking about it. I've been including some more kind of supernatural enemies in the list of NPCs.
Yes.
So you can straight from the core, you can have your characters fighting zombies and demons and aliens. There's currently no way to like do magic yourself,
right?
Separate from like the GM decides you get some special power, but it's not part of like the classes or anything yet. But I think it will be.
Yes.
Back
to Kickstarter so we can make this happen, please.
Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about.
The other question that I get a lot is people are wondering, since Everyday Heroes is a 5th edition game, can we potentially bring like monsters from the LSR or just monsters from any 5th edition system into Everyday Heroes, or like how interchangeable is everything?
Yeah, so in terms of like monsters and stuff, pretty interchangeable. I think there's a couple of things you gotta keep in mind, but a lot of it is you rename armor class defense, and there's like a few skill differences. It might be like, oh, this enemy should have the endurance skill or whatever, but a lot of that probably isn't going to matter too much.
Okay.
So most of it you can just sort of pull in. The way that our NPC math works is consistent with 5th edition. So if you see an enemy in Everyday Heroes that's a challenge rating of 5, and an enemy in D&D that's a challenge rating of 5, they should be around the same kind of level of power. Obviously, stuff like they take half damage from non-magic weapons is going to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
So like there's things to think about. But I think really the only thing there is you probably want to assign their attacks a penetration value, which is how you can tell if an attack
goes through the armor,
can be affected by armor or certain cover.
Okay.
But that you can even just decide that if it comes up. Like if they're attacking someone, they haven't dropped them to 0, they're not shooting through cover or whatever. Like you don't need the number until like, oh, they dropped me. Can my armor stop that? And then you can just be like, yeah, or no. Like it's a pretty easy call.
Oh man, you have
But
to think about some things I never thought about before. Like, is a kobold's claws as sharp as a hollow point?
yeah, I mean, in general, most like melee weapons and stuff are gonna be 1.
Yeah.
If they're real sharp and pointy, like a dagger or a spear, real stabby, might be a 2. And then you can give dragon claws and stuff, whatever you want. They can just rip through modern armor if you want.
Penetration value
then,
100.
No, it only goes up to 5. But
true.
Yeah. But then in terms of other stuff, like class options definitely don't translate. We have our own classes. I am probably, at least personally, going to put together a little document for if you want to multi-class into D&D classes. I think that will not be official, but it'll be something available for me if you really want to multi-class into wizard or monk or something.
Okay.
Just as a fun little thing, put it in our feed system. I think that's pretty simple. And then anything else like a magic item or something, if you want to put in, like, yeah, that'll pretty much work the same way. You can have a +1 gun like that. Yeah.
My Glock is masterwork.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's more of a thing the engineer can do.
That is true. That is true. So as we start to wind down here, we've kind of taken a look at a lot of pieces of everyday heroes, from our chasing system to the various classes that we have. I know that another system that we often get asked about is the wealth system, and is that going to be making a return?
Yeah. So the main answer is not really, not exactly, but also yes. We have
yes,
a wealth system.
Kinda.
Yeah. Yes, but yeah. So the D20 modern wealth system had you making like wealth checks to see if you could buy stuff,
Right.
which I know some people really liked, but was mostly disliked. But basically what we've got is a very simplified wealth system, which is you have a wealth level, which says kind of generally what how much money you have in your in like how much money you earn, and it's not like cash in the bank. It's just sort of what wealth level are you living at.
Okay.
And then every item has a wealth level, and if it is equal to or lower than your wealth level, you can buy it.
Oh, love that.
So you don't have to be tracking, what's my current credit score, and how many dollars do I have in my savings account, and can I take out a loan with a bank or what? Like assume if you have a wealth level 3, which is like pretty decent, pretty good standard of living, like you probably have a credit card, and you probably have some money lying around, and the bank will probably give you a loan, and so that just lets you buy whatever, like you could buy a car or something, at that wealth level.
I got to get myself to wealth level 3 in real life.
Yeah, that'd be great. And there's some GM discretion there, where like if you're like, I have a wealth level 3 and like a pretty nice car is 3, can I buy 100 cars? Like probably no, like probably not. But for the most part, like any equipment you want to have, if you're like, I want to have this, the GM can be like, yeah. There are some items that are restricted, which means that you need some kind of like license or military rank or something to have. You can't just buy a rocket launcher, even in the US. Though I was very surprised at how many things are not restricted in the U.S. I definitely thought tasers were a lot more illegal than they are,
No.
or at least stun guns. Tasers are the ones that shoot little needles that electrocute you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in general, you can just buy whatever is within your wealth level and not have to worry about it. So like you're not tracking gold. If you defeat some goons and you pick their pockets and like, oh, they have $10. It's like you don't have to write that down. It's just very
It's
simplified.
much easier that way.
Yeah, because the real world is very complicated. In a fantasy world, you can have characters walking around with gold pieces and that works. But like, the real world finances are weird.
You telling me, man? You
You know,
telling me?
and it just isn't really going to be fun to be tracking that.
So all right, so that's kind of bringing us to the end here. So I only have two more questions for you, and then I'm gonna let you get back to the good work of hammering out the
All right.
system so we can get it to people's hands. The first question is, what is your favorite part of Everyday Heroes so far? Like, what's a part of this game that you're like, oh, that we really did that. Mwah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the mastermind is a good answer to that.
Yeah.
It's such a good concept. It's so fun to play out. Just being able to retroactively say you did a thing, and the mastermind is the one that is just 100% that, and not I brought a tech thing with me, or I wrote a program. It's all I was so smart that I planned this. So like that, yeah, that is definitely up there. But I'm really liking a lot of things in this system. As a designer, I really enjoy sort of the way that classes have been put together. It's very easy to add new ones. So I think that'll be really cool for people who like to homebrew like I do. Plus, a lot of future content. I think will be really cool.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we've got some plans. And for my last question, what would you say to anyone that's a little hesitant on the fence? You're the designer behind this thing. You've seen it from the beginning to where it is now. If somebody's just like, I don't know, what would you say?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on why they're on the fence.
True.
Like I think some people, generally feel like fifth edition maybe isn't as like deep as other systems. To which I would say, I feel like it kind of is, but also we've added some more customization here.
Yeah.
So I think people who want to really customize and pick little things and tweak their character and stuff will be happy with the number of feats you get. The granularity of minor feats. The ease of multiclassing. I think all of that is for that kind of player.
Yeah.
And then completely from the other end, if people are like, well, I like playing Fate or Powered by the Apocalypse games, which are very simple and narrative. There isn't much crunch. I would basically just say that it's really easy to get into this system. Like if you have somebody who knows it already running the game, like you need to know basically nothing to start.
That is
Like
so
you
true.
can pick your background, your profession, and your class. Go with the suggested ability scores, and your character will be good. Like there aren't traps built into this system to be like, you made the wrong choice. Like if you really love optimizing, you could probably squeak out a little bit more damage or something like that. But it's real hard to make a bad character. And the way that the system runs is very simple. It's mostly just roll a d20 and add a number to it.
Yeah.
And if you get the target number or higher, you do it. Like that's almost all the things. So much of the book is just like little details and examples and advice, and you can get into that as you go or not. Like I have friends who I play 5th edition with who just don't care about the rules. It's just like, what, I'm gonna read this whole book? Yeah, right. And it works perfectly fine. Like
Yeah.
they learn the rules they need, and that's all you need. So those are kind of the two different directions I feel like people would hesitate from most. um and also just like the modern setting.
Yeah.
If you just really love fantasy, you really love sci-fi, but like, the modern world, I don't know. And to that, I would say, one, I put those demons and zombies and aliens in there. Like, just because your characters can't cast spells doesn't mean you can't do some crazy sci-fi stuff. And also, give it a little bit.
Yeah.
Where it's coming.
I think that's the perfect note for us to start wrapping. I do have to agree with your sentiments. The thing that I love the most about this system is that you can watch any action movie and essentially recreate that character. You can make your John
Yeah.
McClane. You can, make your Terminators. It really is a very cinematic system, and we're going to be exploring that even further as we go into the future. Um, but that's been our designer discussion today. I hope that we were able to illuminate our our system for you a little bit, so you can get a peek behind the curtain and see what we're working so hard on. We really do appreciate all the support that we've gotten up to this point, and we are always appreciative of the support we're going to get in the future. Please, please, please follow our Kickstarter. Our Kickstarter will be going live May 17th. That's us signing off. Go ahead and say your goodbyes, Goober.
All right. Yeah, good chatting with you, and I hope you're excited for this, as like I am. I'm gonna be actually starting a game myself today with it. So I'm real excited to actually just use it.
And I am excited to see it used. It's a fun system to watch. It's a fun system to play. That's been our show today. Please leave a comment below wherever you see this. Let us know if you're excited about it. And more importantly, please leave questions for me to ask the designers the next time I'm able to wrangle them all up. But that has been our show today. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye, minions.